Hello everyone, thank you for joining me. My name is Mateo, and I just wanted to talk to you all about my first stone sculpture. A little bit about myself. I'm a stonemason. I've been doing stonemasonry off and on for the last 18 years, ever since I worked for several cool companies, worked for a lot of cool people, and then I went off on my own because I was really creative in my stonework and did a lot of cool projects for a lot of cool people, and I had a lot of fun doing it. I love stonemasonry. It's one of my favorite things ever. Started off working at the quarry when I was about 14. It was always a lifelong goal to learn how to sculpt. I don't know if it's like that for all stonemasons. I finally did it. I finally got to a point where I was able to start learning to sculpt, and this is a self-taught process for me, with the exception of maybe reading a couple things online. I could Google this or that, but when I'm on Instagram, for instance, and y'all could feel free to check out my profile and follow me and see the people I follow. My Instagram is Pieces of Enchantment. There's a lot of people on there. You interact, ask questions. A lot of these other cool stone sculptors I never even heard of. They don't mind sharing some advice with you. So I learned quite a bit from that. I want to talk about my first stone sculpture, and this is about 3 years ago. I was driving back from Albuquerque back to Mateos and Rivera, New Mexico, and every time I pass through there's this big sign called Alabaster Stone Yard. You can see these huge sculptures and stuff. I was like, okay, let's stop here. The owner was there and a couple of his friends. It was really nice to meet them all, and they were really helpful. They sold me some pieces of limestone at a really good price, especially when I look online, try to order stones. I'm like, wow, they gave me a good deal. And I really appreciate that. I'll be going back to them. Got to take them a stone bench, in fact. So they sold me about 5 stones, and this is the first one I started working on. I was so excited. I wanted to do an array of things. I got on my sketch pad, and I kind of wanted to do something a little morbid, just seeing people's reactions when they come to visit and they get to see my first sculpture. It really helped propel me to keep moving forward. So this is Flesh and Stone 1, and as I progress and I learn more about anatomy, it'll evolve into something cool. On the bottom here, I have a man's face, and up here is basically what's on his mind. And you can see this is his third eye. He's screaming. And there's this woman, she's really pretty, she's pasted in his mind. And then there's this upside down male figure, and it's pressing against his eyeball here, causing him to scream. This male shape here represents basically your carnal desire, and she's here, she's basically oblivious, she's just sitting pretty, and it drives him crazy. On the other side of the face down here, though, you could see he's kind of got it together. He has a little smile, so he's not completely enveloped in this lustful like pressure in the eye. What I really like about the sculpture is no matter how you set it, it looks pretty cool. That's why I didn't make a base for him. And I love how people find shapes in here and images that I didn't mean to carve. So it has a, kind of like a surreal like aspect to it. It's really cool. And I just love the reactions I get seeing when they find the tongue. They're like, is that a tongue? What is this guy doing? Why is he screaming? And oh wow, she's looking right at the backside of this girl here. When it's flipped this direction, it seems like the madness of your lustful and carnal desires is dominating the sculpture. And when you flip her this way, where it's just the girl, she's oblivious to, well, I don't know how oblivious she is, but some girls don't know how they make guys feel. They could drive guys crazy, you know. Maybe it's the same for girls, I don't know. Probably is. But here he has it together, you know. He has a little smile and he's controlling himself. On this side though, you can see the pressure on his eye, and yeah, you just lay this puppy down, and no matter how you set it, it looks pretty cool. You see the backside of this male figure leaning on the eyeball, and this is before I started studying anatomy. And this is what got me into starting to study human anatomy, because it was more of a challenge than I thought. I thought I'd just get my chisel and pop it out. I'm very happy with how it came out, but like I said, I do want to just improve. That's my goal, is to improve. So I had a very limited tool set when I started this. I found my stone masonry tools weren't quite the tools to use. I tried them. They're bigger, they're bulkier, 4-pound hammer, 2-pound hammer. When I sculpted this, the heaviest hammer I used is a 1-pound hammer, and the chisels are a bit smaller. I also use this little 24-ounce bell hammer and an 8-ounce bell hammer. You get a lot of detail done doing that, using these very primitive tools that I got from the Artisan in Santa Fe, New Mexico. They have a lot of cool, I also got a couple of cool pieces of alabaster from them. One of my coolest pieces to this date was just this little square piece of alabaster that I got from them. But this is what I started with, relatively inexpensive chisels from a sculpture house. The first tool I like to use is this point tool. This point is just one of my best friends here. Since then I have now a carbide tipped, and then I have like a pneumatic tool, but this was my baby about 3 years ago. So you get your point, you do a lot of your detail, and if you really need to go down in stone, you can make a hash-like pattern with your point. Just make indentions with it. Make a bunch of little tiny or small squares, depending on the size of your sculpture. The next thing you go to is you get your clawed chisel, and you pop each one of those little boxes out as you carved and made a hash-like pattern. You pop them out with this, and then you get your flathead chisel, and you just kind of carve out all the bruises you make. Always wear the proper safety equipment. This is from the Home Depot. It's worked just well for me. These are alabaster stone tools. They're not made for limestone, but I didn't have any alabaster, and I just used what I could, but I did make sure to wear the proper safety equipment, and I'm going to actually have a video on that coming up. So those are the chisels I used for this. As I was a beginner, and this is why I'm making these videos, I didn't know about rasping, so I went straight from chiseling to sanding, and I did this on several of my sculptures, not knowing that I could have saved a lot of time if I had just known about rasps. So after you do the flat chisel and smooth it out as much as possible, then you get your rasps and you rasp it. And I really love the rasp because you actually shape your stone quite a bit, and you connect the dots is what I like calling it, and you also put in the nice fine detail. Then after your rasping, you go on to your sanding, and we're going to talk all about that in a different video. Yeah, for now I just wanted to show everyone very minimal tool set when I first started about 3 years ago. Since then I've been doing more abstract like sculptures. There's just a world of art out there, but right now where I'm really putting a lot of my energy into is learning human anatomy, and I'm doing that using this Roma plasticina, this plasticine clay, and it's a lot more forgiving than stone. So now I'm doing faces in clay, and I could see just by learning about the human skull, it really will point you in the direction of ethnicity, male or female. Just that little insight alone improved my facial sculpting dramatically, and I feel like it's going to take me maybe 3 or more years to learn. Maybe it'll be a lifelong lesson. My previous sculptures, they were taking weeks. I didn't have a die grinder at the time. I didn't know what that was. So I had my little Dremel, and I was using sandpaper, little pieces of sandpaper, just boring out, replacing the sandpaper for hours and hours just to make a hole in this piece of onyx that I was working on. That was my learning curve. I did not know until Miles from 2Sculpt told me, hey, get yourself a die grinder, buy these bits. I really appreciate talking to Miles from 2Sculpt. A bunch of tools and a bunch of stones, you know. What really struck me is he talked to me for about 45 minutes in the process of stone sculpting and the stone carving. So thank you, Miles. Now that he sends me his catalog, I'll open the catalog. There's a bunch of cool pictures of all these nice stones and all these cool sculptures. But in this pamphlet of his in his catalog, there's just a wealth of information in there. So I wish I would have read all that before I even picked up a chisel. All this practicing for 3 years has come together, and I feel like I'm finally to the point where I could produce at a faster level. And also working on anatomy using this clay is putting me light years ahead. So let's see how it progresses. On my next video, I'll be showing you my first marble sculpture. It's really hard to get marble out here. Also my first time breaking a stone and having to fix it. So There was a lot of learning involved in there. I'll talk about that and the tools I used. But anyways, here she is, my very first sculpture. This is my first video. Join me next time. I'm going to show y'all some safety equipment I used, and after that we'll get right into it. All y'all out there, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow. I really appreciate it. Alright, thanks a lot. We'll see you soon.